Right, let's dive into it. Because the week is heating up fast as we get closer to that massive derby on Sunday. And with a place in the semi-final of the Premier Sports Cup on the line, tensions are already rising around the Celtic camp. There's so much going on, from boardroom noise to pitch-level excitement. And yes, a certain winger is stealing headlines for all the right reasons. But let's start with what everyone's been whispering about, Celtic's finances. The club's annual report is due any day now, and judging by the calendar pattern from previous years, it might even drop today. That's got people talking, and not just in passing. There's serious buzz because the numbers we're about to see could spark bigger conversations about the direction of the club. Now, according to talks swirling around the media, including what's being said on the Record Celtic podcast, we could be looking at a cash reserve pushing into the tens of millions. That's right, tens of millions sitting in the bank while fans are still debating transfer windows that didn't quite deliver. Think about that. A massive war chest untouched, while the squad clearly has gaps, and the support has been voicing frustration for months. It's the kind of news that lands like a lead balloon, especially when you've got fans pouring their wages into tickets, season books, merchandise, the whole lot. It brings back that recurring question, where's the ambition? What's interesting is that the annual report in recent years hasn't just been a dry spreadsheet affair. We're talking full-on glossy publications, almost like a corporate magazine, with long-winded statements from Chairman Peter Lawwell and Chief Executive Michael Nicholson. But despite the polish, there's been very little in the way of answers. You read through 80 pages of stats, projections, mission statements, and whatnot, but at the end of it, the core frustrations remain. Fans still feel unheard. The football side of the club, which should be the beating heart of everything, still feels like it takes second place to the balance sheet. And yet, in a strange way, this upcoming report might actually serve a purpose. Because when it's all laid out, the profits, the record-breaking revenues, the post-Champions League windfall, the mega sale of Matt O'Reilly, it becomes impossible to ignore just how much the Celtic support contributes to the club's success. Not just emotionally, not just in terms of atmosphere, but financially. This club's engine runs on the back of fan loyalty. And if that gets underlined in black and white through this financial report, then maybe, just maybe, it becomes a turning point in how the wider fan base pushes back. There's already talk about a more unified front, even murmurs of collective action, a merchandise boycott, for example, which doesn't affect the players or the performances but sends a crystal-clear message to those in charge. And we're starting to see the early signs of that shift. Sunday's protest in the stands wasn't just noise, it was a statement, and it felt like the beginning of something more organized. There are groups forming, people stepping up into roles of responsibility, and an appetite for change that feels different this time. And let's be honest, some of that urgency is coming from what we're seeing on the pitch too. Because when results stutter and performances lack spark, the spotlight on the boardroom only intensifies. But, ironically, it's also on the pitch where we might be seeing the first green shoots of something special. Because let's talk about Sebastian Tecti, or as we now officially know, Sebastian Tecti. No more mispronunciations, no more Tenki or Tanky. The man himself laid it down this week in his first media appearance. And what an impression he made, both on the field and behind the mic. It's early days, of course, but there's a vibe around this lad that just feels different. You could feel it on Sunday the moment he got on the ball. A winger with pace, confidence, directness. It's like he's straight out of the old-school Celtic mold. Fans have been crying out for someone who plays with a bit of flair and joy, and Tecti looks like he might be exactly that. What stood out in his presser wasn't just the usual media-trained lines. He genuinely came across as humble, grounded, and thrilled to be wearing the hoops. No nonsense about using the club as a platform or eyeing a move after one good season. Whether that's how he really feels or just savvy PR doesn't matter right now. The energy he's bringing is exactly what the support needed after weeks of grumbling and fatigue. And you can tell he gets it. He spoke about entertaining the fans, about never passing back when he sees an opportunity to take a man on. That's the kind of statement that gets people buzzing. That's Celtic football. That's what people pay to see. He even addressed the big positional question. Can he play on the right? Sure. Will he? If the manager asks, yes. But let's be honest, he belongs on the left. It's clear. Every time he cut inside on Sunday, you could sense defenders panicking. It was his natural side, and he was electric. That was on a plastic pitch against a stuffy, deep-lying backline. Imagine what he'll be like at Celtic Park with space to run into, on a surface that actually suits his style. You look ahead to that European fixture in Belgrade next week. Big pitch, continental tempo, chance to break, and suddenly, Tecti feels like he could be a real weapon in Europe too. The fact that he's already linking up with Benji Negrin, another Scandinavian, is a nice bonus. We've seen before how little things like friendships off the pitch can help players settle and find form quicker. Of course, there's always the danger of overhyping after one good performance. But that's part of being a football fan. You should get excited. You should dream a little. That's what this sport is about, especially when the team's been crying out for a spark. Tecti looks like he could be the kind of player who not only lifts the crowd, but raises the standard for everyone around him. But for every new star making waves, there's always one story that brings the mood back down. And right now, that's Simpson-Pusy. Signed over 6 weeks ago and still hasn't kicked a ball for the first team. Not only has he missed out on every domestic matchday squad so far, but even when the squad size was expanded for European ties, he barely featured. Something's clearly not right. Brendan Rodgers had said they were easing him in, giving him time to adjust, that sort of thing. But we're past the international break now. The team's thin in some areas. There's no logical reason he shouldn't be at least on the bench, unless there's more to the story. And maybe there is. Because now there are whispers, nothing confirmed, but whispers nonetheless, that Simpson-Pusy may have refused to play for the B team recently. If true, that's a bad look, especially for a player who's not earned his spot yet. Add to that a cryptic Instagram post, black background, philosophical quote about patience and blessings, and it just all feels a bit messy. To make things worse, he hasn't even been named in the Europa League squad. That feels like a major red flag. If Rodgers doesn't even see him as an option for Europe, then it's hard to see how he breaks in domestically anytime soon. Again, it's early days, but this already has the smell of a signing that's not going to work out. And yet, as one story fizzles, another is just getting started. Because the cup tie against Partick Thistle on Sunday is shaping up to be a proper occasion. No VAR. That's right, no VAR. Because Thistle's home ground doesn't have the infrastructure, the game's going old school. And honestly, there's something quite refreshing about that. No delayed celebrations. No awkward pauses waiting for someone in a dark room to draw lines on a screen. Just football. Just goals. Just instinct. It'll be the first competitive Celtic game without VAR since October 2022. That's nearly 3 years of stop-start nonsense wiped away for one afternoon. And if anything, that might even suit a player like Tecti. Let him run wild. Let the game breathe a bit. It's a quarterfinal, it's away from home, and it's got that unpredictable cup feel that Celtic have stumbled on in the past. But there's also a big opportunity here. A win sets up a semi-final, gives momentum before Europe, and keeps spirits high in what's shaping up to be a season full of twists and turns. And once that match at Firhill wraps up, all eyes shift toward the trip to Serbia. A proper European night is coming, even if it's not in the Champions League like we had all hoped. Still, there's a growing sense among the Celtic support that the Europa League doesn't have to be a consolation prize. It can be a stage to test ourselves, to show we've learned from last season, and to prove that this team can still deliver continental performances. The opener in Belgrade against Red Star, or Crvena Zvezda, as they're formally known, is going to be a real test, not just in terms of quality on the pitch, but the atmosphere, the emotions, the entire environment we're walking into. And let's not pretend it'll be a normal night. Because just days ago, Red Star suffered a real tragedy. Their former captain, Dejan Milovanovic, collapsed and passed away during a veterans match. Only 41 years old. A proper club figure, someone who made over 300 appearances and scored over 40 goals for the team. That's the kind of loss that sends shockwaves through a club, through a city, especially one as deeply connected to football as Belgrade. His death will be raw, recent, and deeply felt when we step out onto that pitch. It's not just another European tie. It'll be the first home game since that news broke. Expect emotion. Expect a crowd that's grieving, remembering, and rallying all at once. And Celtic will need to be sharp, respectful, and most importantly, ready for a battle. Red Star are no mugs either. Forget about them going out of the Champions League early. That was a disappointment for them, no doubt, but it's not a measure of their quality. Domestically, they're absolutely flying. They've scored 7 goals in one match, 5 in another, and they're averaging nearly 5 goals per game this season. Those aren't numbers you put up by accident. That speaks to a team with confidence, with structure, with serious firepower. Their league form is red hot, and they've got the eternal derby against Partizan just before facing us, which adds even more heat to the build-up. No chance they rotate players. No chance they ease off. They're coming into this doubleheader fired up and in rhythm. That's why Sunday's match against Partick isn't just a cup tie. It's preparation. A test of focus, of sharpness, of finding rhythm before the plane leaves for Serbia. Celtic can't afford a flat performance at Firhill. Can't afford to lose momentum. These are the kinds of weeks that shape a season. Derby on Sunday, Europe midweek, all wrapped in the chaos of off-pitch noise and fan tension. But it's also the kind of stretch that can galvanize a squad, turn a group of players into a team that believes in itself. And with someone like Sebastian Tecti hitting form, and guys like Callum McGregor starting to look more like themselves again, there's a sense that we're maybe, finally, turning a corner. But it's not all positivity, because let's be honest, the squad still feels unbalanced. We've seen it time and again this season. Certain positions just don't have the cover. And you start to ask questions. Why was the recruitment not sharper in the summer? Why are there still players being signed who clearly aren't trusted to feature? Why is someone like Simpson-Pusy even here if the manager isn't putting him in domestic squads? That Europa League exclusion feels like a nail in the coffin. It tells you he's nowhere near Brendan Rodgers' plans. And fair enough, sometimes transfers don't work. But this is a pattern now. And when you see big money sitting untouched in the bank, and you will, when that financial report drops, the frustration builds. The contrast is glaring. You've got young, hungry talent like Tecti making an instant impact, and then others, like Simpson-Pusy, completely frozen out. It sends mixed signals about the direction the club is going. Are we building something? Or are we still making signings just to tick boxes and balance sheets? The fans are asking, and they deserve answers, not just glossy statements buried in an 80-page corporate brochure. And yet, despite all the noise, there's still that underlying hope. That belief that maybe, just maybe, the team can rise above the mess and give supporters something to believe in. The beauty of football is that it doesn't wait. There's always another game, another chance to reset the story. Sunday gives Celtic the chance to lay down a marker, to build some momentum before what will be one of the biggest tests of the season so far in Belgrade. And look, the Europa League might not carry the prestige of its big brother, but the challenge is just as real. The opponents are hungry. The travel is demanding, and the spotlight is just as bright, especially when you're Celtic, a club with expectations that stretch far beyond the domestic border. This is still a stage to perform, to impress, and for players to write themselves into the European chapters of Celtic's history. And for someone like Tecti, it could be the beginning of something really special. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are swirling around Glasgow's East End this week, and the green and white half of the city is buzzing with anticipation. Reports suggest that Celtic have quietly sealed a deal to bring winger Ryan Kent back to Scotland, with manager Brendan Rodgers said to have given his full approval. Though nothing has been officially announced, the mere suggestion has set tongues wagging, for Kent remains one of the most polarizing figures to have graced the Scottish game in recent years. Kent, of course, made his name in Scotland with the blue of Rangers, often tormenting Celtic defenses with his direct running and eye for the spectacular. Yet as his career stalled south of the border after leaving Ibrox, speculation about a return north has never been far away. Now, if the rumors are to be believed, Rodgers sees him as the spark needed to add depth and unpredictability to his attacking options for the 2025 campaign. The thought of Kent pulling on a Celtic shirt has already caused plenty of heated debate among supporters. For some, it's a bold and clever move, proof of Rodgers' willingness to look past history and focus solely on ability. For others, it is an unsettling prospect. How would a player so strongly linked with the rival cause be embraced in paradise? Still, football has a funny way of rewriting narratives. If Kent were to deliver on the big stage in Europe or notch a goal in an Old Firm derby, perceptions could shift overnight. Rodgers, never shy of a gamble, seems convinced that the winger's pace and dribbling can thrive in his fluid system. Those close to the manager suggest he has pushed the club's hierarchy to act quickly, seeing Kent as a low-cost, high-upside addition in a market where proven attacking talent is scarce. Whether it proves to be a masterstroke or a misstep, one thing is certain. The potential arrival of Ryan Kent at Celtic Park has electrified the city. For now, it remains a rumor, a tantalizing whisper on the wind, but in Glasgow, whispers often grow into roars. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.